Hi,
Excellent.
Shamash.
Hi,
Yeah,
how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's great to see you. I haven't seen you for a while, so this is an extra treat.
Yeah, it feels like ages.
Yeah, exactly. So what have you got planned for us today?
Whoa, well, a lot of
What
a
have you going
lot's
to
been
share today?
covered. I offered to look at exploring the heart a little and a heart-based meditation. And yeah, so I've put together just that and
Wonderful. That's great.
meditation, to end with.
Great. Yeah, the longer we go towards the end of the day, the bit more challenging it is because of it's the same topic, but it's always nice to hear it from different angles. Sometimes you can have the same meditation from 10 different people, but you hear it differently and there's slightly different words. So that's what this whole day is all about. So we're very grateful that you gifted your time today, and I'll pass it over to you. So just take your time when you're
Yeah,
ready.
I'm grateful to be here. Thank
Wonderful,
you.
wonderful.
I thought we could start with something like your one breath, but I call it 1 minute counts. And so I'll incorporate it and turn it into one kind breath for World Kindness Day. So I don't know if you'd like to just get comfortable and just you could close your eyes even and just turn towards yourself with kindness. And take one kind breath with a tiny smile to your heart, releasing your shoulders if they're sort of stuck up near your ears, and checking that your jaw's not tense, that your posture's not tense, that you're kind of aligned and leaning to one side. Have you got a frown? Just that. And then we could come back to wherever you are. And once again, I'd suggest getting comfortable. So, if you need to lie down or whatever it is, just for this session, do. Okay, I'd like to start with a little story. Sharing is caring, according to Niles, sharing stories. So, my little son he's turning 21 on Sunday, but he was about 4 and we got stuck in a queue. There were people everywhere. Our trolley was full. And then there were a few people ahead of us, and one started shouting and swearing at the teller. And then gradually the people behind started doing the same. And I had this spectacle in front of me. I couldn't really move. And so I thought, oh gosh. So I said to him, is there another way that these people could be communicating or saying how they feel, do you think? I mean, could they be kind, for example? And could the people waiting behind this chap who's obviously very angry perhaps just be more patient, which means, just waiting quietly, finding something to do, something like that? So we had this little conversation, and then we looked at all the chocolates and chose one, being kind to ourselves. And yeah, eventually, we got out of there. And then a few days later, we're sitting in the car, stuck in traffic, and I'm feeling a little bit, it's hot, I'm frustrated. And my son turns around and says to me, we could practice being kind and patient. Oh, so I'm going to look a little bit at the heart. I'm not a cardiologist, but I know that the heart is fabulous. Whales have the largest in mammals, and then the American pygmy shrew has the smallest heart in mammals. And then apparently there's a fairy fly, I love the name, but it's a wasp, which has the tiniest heart in all living creatures. A human heart is about the size of a fist, and it beats at about 115,000 beats a day. Now, I don't understand gallons, and I haven't bothered to look up an equivalent, but it just sounded a huge amount. 200 gallons pumped through the heart a day. Yeah, the heart has 4 chambers, 4 valves, 4 functions. For example, main functions, sending oxygen to the body and organ hormones and vital substances to the organs of the body, cells of the body. And then in turn receiving deoxygenated blood and metabolic wastes, which it pumps to the lungs to be breathed out. And it maintains your blood pressure. So it's a really important organ. And yeah, unfortunately, some people get heart conditions. They could be inherited or congenital, or, they could develop them. For example, vascular dementia or stroke. And emotional conditions. King David in the Bible in Psalms 22, Psalm 109, verse 22, talks about his heart being wounded. And a doctor was at an event, touching people on the shoulders, chatting, and then he tapped this one chap on the shoulder, sort of in a friendly way, and the guy kind of jumped back, and he thought, whoa, okay. And it turned out this chap had injured his shoulders, and his shoulder, I should say. And so later this doctor was reflecting on this and realized, just had this flash, yes, when people's hearts are wounded or something that we can't see, they may react in ways we don't expect. Just that we all see things not as we are, says Anais Nin, but as we are. I've got a lovely little story from a book called I Once Was Blind, But Now I Squint by Ken Crockett. And he talks about an episode in Peanuts where Charlie Brown, Linus, and Lucy are lying on a mountain looking up at the clouds. And Lucy says, if you use your imagination, you can see lots of things in cloud formations. What do you see, Linus? And Linus says, well, these clouds up there look like a map of the British Honduras in the Caribbean. And that cloud up there looks a little bit like the profile of Thomas Eakins, a famous painter. And that group of clouds there gives me the impression of the stoning of Stephen. I can see the Apostle Paul standing there to one side, Linus replied. What do you see in the clouds, Charlie Brown, Lucy inquired. Well, I was going to say I saw a ducky and a horsey, but I've changed my mind. So, again, we view things not only from different sides, but through different eyes, says Blaise Pascal. And Ken Crockett also talks about people who've had heart transplants seeing things differently suddenly. For example, a chap who had a heart transplant, he'd loved classical music, and then suddenly he started loving rock music, and it turned out the teenager that whose heart he got loved rock music. Or an example of a man who started to have episodes of depression after having a transplant from a woman who had episodes of depression. And I think there was another story. Yes, there was one chap who had a heart transplant who woke up saying, everything is copacetic. And he'd never used that word before. I don't think he knew what it meant. I didn't. Had to look it up, and it means everything is excellent. And yeah, it was a phrase that this chap whose heart he got used to say to his wife. So the heart is pretty incredible, and that they link to studies that show actually the heart has an imitation of the neural system in the brain. So we think with our hearts too. Lucia mentioned, different emotions and being able to turn towards them for healing with kindness. And so I would like to now turn towards a little bit, just looking at kindness. So that's my little bit on the heart. And now I want to just read another little bit from The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, which is by Charlie Macquarie. And the mole says, what do you want to be when you grow up? Kind, says the boy. I love that. Growing up to be kind. So David Hamilton was a pharmaceutical scientist who moved into research around psychological research and kindness and the heart. And he talks about, says that, we're genetically wired to be kind, and that kindness is the opposite of stress. So we can't be kind and stressed. It protects against depression. There is loads of research around this. And kindness releases kind hormones, which are like love hormones, oxytocin and dopamine. And it's contagious. So when Shamash said, let's make kindness go viral, even small acts like a tiny smile can make a difference. And the side effects of kindness are, increased happiness. It's good for your heart. It slows aging, so stops those wrinkles, and improves relationships. I looked up some synonyms, and there's loads of different words we can use for kindness. Generous, tender, helpful, and so on. And I then looked up kind-hearted, which is a synonym for kindness, but has a deeper layer of sympathy and compassion. And then I looked at these two words and I got, sorrow. In other words, sorrow for other people's misfortune is sympathy, but it also can mean understanding between people. And compassion is recognizing suffering and taking action. So I now want to just move on to talking a little bit about practicing kindness, which comes back to the story of me and my son. We've spent the rest of his childhood and even now into adulthood practicing being kind to each other through kind thoughts, words, and deeds. And so I'd like to encourage us to think of kind, ethical transactions with ourselves, with others, with the environment. And, they could be very small, or you could be joining an organization that's, doing big things. But committing to being kind to ourselves, being kind to all, which includes ourselves and the environment. So little things you can do. Well, this is a big thing, actually. You can eat well, eat nourishing food, delicious food that you enjoy. Be active, walk, garden, even housework, and you'll end up with a clean house in the end. Being just kind reduces stress. It's good for you. It's good for others. And being kind to others is good for you. So just choosing something. You can meditate. You can practice breathing techniques. You can choose relaxation, just taking a cup of tea into the garden and just sitting with the sun on your face. or a deep, relaxing bubble bath. You could plant seeds in your garden. And really with all of this, you're planting seeds and growing kindness in you and around you. You know, these are actions that can impact you, but will impact others as well. Just smiling at someone. You could pay forward a meal or give funny gifts, as Shamash mentioned earlier. You could listen mindfully to others and to yourself. I read an article about mindful listening earlier this year, and my son, who had recently lost a friend through a really dreadful, it wasn't an accident really, but she was plowed into by a car running from the police, and she died. And anyway, so he flops into the sofa and just looked incredibly sad. And I just read this article and I thought, okay, I'm going to listen mindfully. And I think that was the deepest conversation we've ever had. I didn't barely say a word. He just talked and talked and talked about things that happened at primary school, you know, how he was feeling, how he felt about death, what he thought about religion, just his friend and all the things they've done together and how much he loved her. It was just beautiful and very heartwarming, touching. Yeah. And I did feel good. I felt like I had been kind. And so, yeah, I really encourage you to try listening mindfully to people or more. Donating your time or money, taking a plant to work even. And obviously for the environment, you could water that plant at work or water your garden. But you could also be doing things like today raising money or paying money towards planting trees, just $1. You can get the details for that if you want to do that. So from Shamash, I'm sure he'll let you know. And you could also do things like reusing and recycling and donating excess stuff to be reused by others. It's compassion in action that, is it Philippe, I think, mentioned earlier today. And so thinking about compassion in action, kindness to your heart and to yourself, let's think about moving into a little heart meditation or visualization. Yeah, I really loved the model that was presented just before me. I am, I care, I share, I choose. And this could be one kind breath, like Shamash mentioned earlier, committing to those small changes, you know, tiny habits, as Shamash mentioned, creating a kindness bubble through journaling, like Jacqueline mentioned, or creating your own kindness stories and sharing them with others, like Calvin talked about. Yes, so let's do a little meditation, and then we'll end. It's only going to be a few minutes, but if you'd like to get comfortable, and you know, comfortable is being kind to yourself. Just choosing a posture where you can be alert. And you can close your eyes if you wish and bring an attitude of kindness to this moment. And take a slow changing breath. Followed by one really deep, slow breath. And then just let your breath settle. Now noticing your breathing, you could visualize, I invite you breathing through your heart, through your lungs to your heart and to your whole body. Visualize smiling to your heart. You could put your hand on your heart and feel it beating. Thank it for all it does. Gratitude and kind thoughts are good for you, as we've heard all day today. Now I'd like you to visualize something kind you could do today for your heart. One kind thing for you could be simply to smile, or go for a walk, or that cup of tea in the garden. Just think of something you're going to do later today for you. Something you could do for others. So you might give something, or you might listen to somebody. You could buy somebody a plant. And then finally, something that you're going to do today for the environment. So this could be something really small. You could donate $1 for a tree to be planted. You could water a plant. Visualize yourself doing these 3 things. One kind thing to you, one kind thing for others, and one kind thing for the environment. And then returning to your breathing and just noticing your breathing. And if you have your hand on your heart, you can think about the connection with this and your heart. And the connection with your heart and your mind and your body and your emotions and your being. And then actually paying attention to where you can feel your breath, perhaps your nostrils, or the rise of your chest or belly. Nice deep breaths are for the belly. And then slowly coming back into this room or wherever you are with a smile. You could open your eyes and that's what I have planned for kindness and the heart.
Wow, that was really wonderful, very moving. Just looking here at what Liv says, this is the kindest thing I've done for my heart today, Mary. Thanks for sharing. That was beautiful.
That's awesome.
Then he said, the kindest pandemic, warning, very contagious and can quickly go viral. That's a good one.
The smallest thing can make the hugest difference. So a ripple effect.
And Elspeth says, thank you, Mary. Love all the facts about the heart and animal hearts. Yeah, I loved those facts, especially the small hearts. I was really curious about that. I was trying to find a picture of that tiny heart. Really fascinating. I had no idea our hearts work so hard throughout the day. Yeah. And the stories too. And I really liked all the different suggestions as well, actually, because sometimes people say do small acts of kindness, but then you just can't think of what would be a good thing, or you always think of the same thing. But even watering a plant is a nice one. It's really, really simple one as well, isn't it? And then there's that sense of connection, and who knows what happens from there. Even if nothing happens from there, it's lovely in itself.
Yeah, I talk to my plants while I do that.
Really? Do they ever talk back?
Well, they do. They show me how they feel because they either wilt or they, grow.
High five. They high five you. If you wanted me, I'll give you a high five. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go. It's the world's slowest high five. Takes about 5 days.